Hey, nice to see you guys again. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about nutrition. Gosh, it just gets me all giddy. People ask me, I bet you get tired of talking about nutrition all the time. Actually, I don't. I just get all giddy about it. You know, the Lord has, I don't know, there's just so much that I've experienced through my life that I just feel like this is where the Lord's put me. Definitely my purpose. Anyway, I just want to kind of dive in. Amanda had sent me all the information you guys are covering, so I want to try to stay with it. I'm going to add to some of it as well. But I just wanted to kind of cover everything with you. You know, what you eat, you've got to think of it as medicine, because what you eat directly affects everything about your health, whether it be your energy or your immune system or lack of immune system. It affects your risk of diabetes, heart disease, cancer. There's lots of things that what you eat directly affects, so you have to think of it as medicine. But the big thing that a lot of people don't realize is the right combinations of certain foods makes the medicine more potent, and you get more energy out of the right combination. So I'm going to dig into that with you guys. The first part, basically, you have three different food families. I like to call them food families. They're actually called macronutrients, and that is your carbs, your proteins, and your fats. And I'm going to break each one of those down with you to kind of give you a basic understanding of what exactly the purpose of each one of those are. There's a lot of fad diets out there that really limit you or make you avoid certain food groups, such as no carbs or no fats. It's real important you don't leave these out. Moderation is the key in all areas, but you never want to totally leave it out. God has put certain vitamins and minerals in each one of those, and they're all very unique and very, very specialized. So it's important you don't leave any of it out. So we're going to dive into that. And the first one we're going to talk about is carbohydrates. This is where we're going to break down your carbs, proteins, and your fats. Your carbs actually are the first source of energy. It's your body's quickest form as soon as your feet hit the floor. It definitely fuels your body. It's your instant one. It's the first thing you start to burn up when you start to exercise. It takes at least 20 minutes before your carbohydrates really start to taper off, before your proteins and your fats, especially your fats, start to kick in for burning up. So it's important you exercise at least 20 minutes before the fat metabolism kicks in. Your proteins actually help to build and repair tissues, your muscles after physical activity, and they're definitely, it's like the building blocks and the repair for your muscle tissues. Fats, you cannot leave out fats because they're important for carrying and transporting your vitamins and minerals throughout your body that are fat-soluble vitamins. It also cushions your body, so you've got to have your fats in your body. You'll find all kinds of research as to how much percentage of your total macronutrients you should have each day, and it's going to vary from one person to the next depending on your physical activity. Weightlifters actually need a higher percentage of protein, lower amount of carbs, bodybuilders too, but runners actually need a little bit more carbs than proteins. Now we're going to talk about carbohydrates. There are two types, complex and simple. Your complex are the best ones of the two. It's broken down into two groups, and that would be your natural complex, such as your oatmeal, your barley, your quinoa, your rice, wild rice preferably, or brown rice. And it's also broken down into your refined complex carbs, such as your whole grain bread, whole wheat pasta. Your simple carbs are broken down into a natural simple carb, which would be your fruit juice or your milk, because they have liquid sugars in them, although it is of a natural source. Whereas your refined simple carbs would be things that have extra added sugar in it, such as your colas, your cakes, your cookies and brownies, high fructose corn syrups that are added to all your drinks. And again, these are all in the best order. You want to try to stay with your complex carbs as much as possible. This graph kind of gives you an idea of what the good carbs, which is your complex, versus your bad carbs, which is your simple carbs. It really plays a huge role in your blood glucose and the release of your insulin. The goal is to keep your insulin levels low and your glucose levels somewhat low, just enough to give you energy. When you have extra insulin that has to be produced due to increasing a massive amount of bad carbs, that tends to overwork your pancreas. Your pancreas is an organ that helps to control or prevent against diabetes because it releases and produces the insulin. So the goal is to really limit how much carbs you consume at one meal, even if it's a good carb, because you don't want an excess amount of insulin produced at one time period and overwork that pancreas. So again, the goal is to limit the amount of insulin. So limit how many carbs you do consume and stay with complex carbs, not simple. This is just another way to show you what happens when you consume a simple carbohydrate. Is called a high glycemic index food, and it's going to spike your insulin levels very high, which increases your risk of fat storage. Your low GI or low glycemic index are your complex carbs. Very low amounts of insulin will be produced at this time. Here's just a few of our complex carbs, which is a low glycemic index food, which is also called a complex, harder for your body to break down. You're actually burning more calories just trying to break it down. But it's your whole grains, your whole wheat breads, it's your wild rice, your brown rice. It's also your raw fruits, raw vegetables even offer some good sources of fiber. It's harder for your body to break down, and it's the foods that are not manipulated by man. They're God-made foods and loaded in vitamins and minerals. Next, we're going to move into our our simple carbohydrates. These are the ones that offer lots of quick fix sugars, quick rises in the bloodstream, rises of insulin. These are the ones that actually promote weight gain. They decrease our immune system if we consume too much of it at one time, and they bring on diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. Most of these are actually manipulated by man. This picture doesn't show, it shows apples, but it's not actually apples, it's apple juice that can promote that. Raw apples are actually good for you, but it's your candies, your syrups, your straight sugar, it's your cakes. Do limit how much natural sugars you do consume, such as your milk and your fruit juices. Make sure that it's 100% fruit juice when you do consume those, not any type of fruit juice cocktail or blends. The serving size for all your carbohydrates are a half of a cup cooked, or a baseball size, such as your apples and your pears. The only exception to that rule is your milk, and that would be 1 full cup. And again, preferably that is a skim milk or 1% milk instead of whole. Now we're going to move into proteins, which is another intricate part of our macronutrients. Most Americans don't get enough proteins, and I'm going to emphasize females do not get enough proteins. We tend to want to fill up on carbohydrates instead. Females tend to be more emotional eaters than men. I'm not saying men aren't emotional eaters, but females tend to be more emotional eaters. And when we emotionally eat, we tend to want to grab up sugary type foods or high starchy foods or just basically loaded in carbohydrates. And we lack protein in our diet. And as you can tell from our carbohydrates, and when we grab up simple sugars, we're going to have our highs and our lows. It's just going to spike up and come back down really quickly. And every time our blood sugar spikes up and the insulin's released and it comes back down, we want to grab up some more food again because we hit a low. And this low, we just feel tired, just don't want to move, but we got to keep going. We got to keep struggling. So it's important that you really limit those types of food so you don't have that roller coaster constantly up and down. And you want to incorporate proteins. Now here's something that most people don't do, and it's very crucial. It is one of the key points of weight loss. One of the key points. It is very important. Every time you consume a carbohydrate, you have to consume a protein with it. The combination is so crucial. It helps to control those blood sugars. Remember on the graph that you saw where carbs shot the blood sugars up? Well, it takes about 2 hours before your carbohydrates spike the blood sugar up and come back down before you want to eat again. 2 hours. Protein takes about 6 to 8 hours before it digests and affects the blood sugar. And it just barely spikes the blood sugar up just to kind of keep you going. It's not your instant source of energy. You can't just survive off of protein. Your body has to have carbohydrates to keep going, especially your brain. It fuels off of carbohydrates only, not your protein and not your fat. But it's important that you eat that protein with the carbs, because when you have your carbs spiking your blood sugars up really high and it's going to come back down in 2 hours, you have your protein that's going to just barely, if I can kind of diagram it like this, your carbs are spiking it up really high and then your proteins are really low, but it stretches way on out for a longer period of time. What that protein does, it acts much like a tug of war. In the process of your body trying to break protein down, it's burning up energy, which your first source of energy is carbohydrates. So your protein is burning up your carbohydrates, pulling your carbohydrate levels down. In the process, it's limiting how much insulin is being produced, therefore less fat storage is going to take place. So when you eat protein with that, you're going to actually feel full for a longer period of time, not just 2 hours like those carbohydrates did. Protein stretches way on out for a good 6 to 8 hours, and when you combine that together, that tug of war together, it's going to stretch your appetite out, or your true hunger pangs, on out for a good 4 to 6 hours. So by doing this, you're actually helping to control blood sugars, which is going to help out with diabetes control or prevention of diabetes. And it's also limiting how much insulin is being produced at one time. Crucial, because your insulin, an excess amount of insulin, is going to store those extra calories in fat cells, making you gain weight. So even if you sit down and eat a totally healthy meal, if you need sideboards on your plate because you've overconsumed, you're going to have to overwork that pancreas, which is in the lower part of your rib cage. You're overworking your pancreas to produce enough insulin in order to bring those blood sugars back down from the foods you just ate, even though they were healthy. Foods you just ate. Anytime you have to overwork that pancreas and an extra amount of insulin is being produced, you're going to have fat storage and you're wearing out your pancreas. Not what you want to do if you are at a risk for diabetes, or if diabetes is in your family, or if you're having blood sugar problems to begin with anyway. So protein is very important. Now there are different types of proteins. You've got lean proteins and you've got some not so lean proteins, and we're going to cover that. Here are our proteins. It's important that you do try to choose leaner types of proteins. Stay away from anything that's fried or loaded in extra added fat, especially animal fats, which we'll discuss that in fats in just a few minutes. When you do purchase any type of red meat, you want to go with very little marbling, and that's basically the white streaks within it. When you choose your cheeses, you want to go with your light cheeses, such as your mozzarella and Parmesan. You want to avoid your harder cheeses and your more orange type cheeses, such as your American and your cheddar. When you do choose eggs, you want to limit your yolks just to limit the amount of cholesterol that you're consuming. Try to stay within limited amount of fats and cholesterol, but your whites are loaded in great protein. So do try to choose those. Also, lean sources of fish are great. Your chicken and your turkey are also very important. Try to go with your antibiotic-free chicken and turkey and your hormone-free beef if at all possible. I also want to point out too that peanut butter is considered a protein, whereas nuts are more of a fat. In the process of making your peanut butter out of nuts, a large amount of the fat is being extracted, leaving behind mostly your protein in the peanut butter. Same thing goes with almond butter. Whereas a fat, whereas just the nuts themselves, they're mostly a fat. They've got a large amount of protein in it, but they have more fat than they do protein. So the ratios of fat versus proteins actually kind of flip-flop when it's being converted into from a nut into a nut butter. And the same is true of your milk and your cheese. Your milk has a high amount of protein in it, very high amount, but it has more carbs in it than protein, so the ratio is higher in carbs versus your protein. In the process of making your cheeses, a large amount of your carbs is being extracted, leaving behind mostly your protein, so the ratios actually flip-flop. So you have a higher amount of protein than your carbs. So cheese is actually considered a protein, just like your peanut butter, whereas your milk is actually considered a carbohydrate. Sounds kind of twisted, true, but that's how everything is actually chemically done and processed. A general rule of thumb is that you want to eat the amount of protein that's equal to the size of your palm. A deck of cards is going to give you right at 3 ounces, about that size, and that would be the thickness, the length, the width, and everything. So right at about that amount, which would equal about how much a female would need at each meal, about 3 ounces, which is the same as 21 grams of protein. A male would need a little bit more, so anywhere from possibly 4 to 6 ounces of protein at each meal. 12-ounce T-bone steak does not equal the size of a man's palm, so always split your meals up if you need to. Okay, now we're going to move into fats. This is one that a lot of people are scared to consume, but it's important you definitely consume fat. Now there are 2 types of fat categories. You have your plant fats, which is your olive oil, your virgin coconut oil, it's your nuts and seeds, it's your avocado, your olives. Those are your good healthy plant fats. And you also have the other category, which is your animal fats. This is your creams, the fat on your meat, the highly marbled meat. It's your bacon, it's your shortening, your lard. These are the ones that actually promote heart disease. Now, those themselves don't promote the heart disease. It's the inflammation within the lining of your arteries caused from junky foods that actually want to cling to these animal fats. And there's where you get your buildup. So it's not just the animal fats that cause the problems. It's the junk food, the fast food. It's the foods that cause inflammation within the lining of your arteries. And those foods are not God-made foods. Those are man-made foods. So just know that. So it's always safe to avoid those animal fats. You want to stick to the plant fats. Now, there are other fats too that are found in fatty fish that are great for the heart as well. And those are your omega-3 types of fats, and you can also find the omega-3s in your fish oil capsules, and you can also get it in your flaxseed. It's important that if you do consume flaxseed, you want to get it milled up or in its liquid form. Your body can actually break down and digest it a little bit better when it's broken down and milled up instead of it in its natural seed. This is your good fats, your monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats, and your omega-3 fats. You want to make sure they're liquid at room temperature. They may actually kind of solidify a little bit if they're kept in the refrigerator. Olive oil is one of the best ones, and another one is your virgin coconut oil. There's a lot of research coming out in the last several years that says your virgin coconut oil has lots of healthy benefits. It has a higher cooking temperature also than your olive oil. Do avoid canola oil. There's lots of tar residues in your canola oil, so you want to avoid that. You also want to avoid any type of trans fats, and that's, of course, going to be found in most of your bad donuts. Again, but your good fats are your monounsaturated and polyunsaturated. And again, they're more liquefied at room temperature. Of course, your polyunsaturated fats would also include your nuts and your seeds, and so would some of your monounsaturated fats. Your omega-3 fats is where you're going to find your cold water seafood like your wild-caught salmon, wild-caught mackerel, your herring. Your flaxseed, your flax oils, your walnuts are all loaded in omega-3 fats. But I do want to emphasize wild-caught, not farm-raised, because you want to have the wild-caught. That's where you're going to get your omega-3s. Seaweed is actually loaded in omega-3s, and you want to try to get the cold water seafood that actually feeds off of seaweed, where you can get the most benefits. You won't find the seaweed in farm-raised on inland farms. So they're good lean sources, but if you're looking for omega-3s for at least twice a week, you want to go with wild-caught. You can eat fish more than twice a week, but the American Heart Association recommends 2 wild-caught fish per week just to get your omega-3 benefits. This is just a summary of our fats in our foods. You have your polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, which are your best. Of course, it breaks it down into your omega-3s, omega-6s. This covers the foods I just kind of covered with you. It's, again, your nuts and your seeds. They're all very important, your wild-caught fish. But also list your harmful fats. Now, protein in your red meat is good for you in limited amounts, but it's the marbling in that red meat is what we call our saturated fats or our bad animal fats. These are the ones that actually bring on some heart disease. Remember, I told you to also limit your orange cheeses and your harder cheeses. Those actually have higher amounts of fat in it, and they're, again, the harmful fats because they are of animal products. It also includes more of like your sour cream. It's also the skin on your tree. Even if you go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and you rip off that skin before you eat it, it has been immersed with the skin inside oil, so you want to avoid that. But any of your high-fat cheeses like that, anything that's fried is going to be immersed in a massive amount of oil. So you really want to limit and avoid anything that's fried, loaded in butter, loaded in creams. Go with your tomato-based sauces instead of your Alfredo-based sauces. Go with your butter on the side so you can control how much it goes into it. And same thing with your salad dressings and with your sour cream. So you can control it. Just dip your fork into it and then dip it into your food to limit how much you do have with it. That's just always a good way to cut back on your calories, especially your fat calories. And it's a good way to eat in moderation. So just limit how much you do have of it. Don't avoid your fats. Moderation is the key, and try to focus more on your plant fats and your fish fats instead of your animal fats. So the serving sizes of your fats, your healthy fats, would be basically the size of the tip of your thumb, which would be about 7 almonds, a whole walnut, I know it's not much, a tablespoon of olive oil, a tablespoon of virgin coconut oil, just a limited amount of those fats you definitely want to have. Again, don't avoid your fats. You want to have a little bit at every meal, but moderation is the key on that one. Our next section is on vitamins. Vitamins are very important. Your vitamins and minerals that are found in your foods are so important in keeping your body nourished because it fights off free radicals. Now, free radicals are actually in all of our bodies, but the more free radicals that we have, the higher our risk of actually developing cancer. So we want to limit how much we do have of that. Of course, sugar feeds cancer cells, and when you have a lot of free radicals there, that really wreaks havoc on the body. People ask me all the time, should I take a vitamin? Actually, you need to look at vitamins as health insurance, so to speak. You want to get a good quality vitamin because not all vitamins are created equal. You want one that's actually going to absorb into the body. Do not depend on a vitamin for your nourishment, though. Your body's desires vitamins and minerals. It craves it. It doesn't crave calories. It craves the vitamins and minerals. But 100% of the vitamins and minerals in your food that you consume will be absorbed into your body. Less than 25% of an actual pill will be absorbed into your body. So do know that. Don't depend on pills for your nourishment. Depend on real food. Again, I'm going to emphasize your food is medicine. Medicine is your food. So you want to depend on that for your nourishment in order to fight off these free radicals and give you the best energy. And sometimes we're more malnourished in one area than the other. And don't think that if you might be overweight or if you might be underweight that you're okay. Even someone who is overweight can be malnourished. Someone who is underweight definitely could be malnourished. So your body craves vitamins and minerals. So you want to get vitamins and minerals from real food, God-made food, not from fast foods at all. I'm going to break a few of these minerals down. One is calcium. It's real important that you get enough calcium in your daily intake, especially if you're running, because that's a lot of stress on the body. Weight-bearing exercises are also very important too, especially after the age of 30, because your bones really need more weight bearing at that point. The growth actually really drops. To get enough calcium in, though, it's important you also get enough vitamin D, specifically vitamin D3. That is what activates the calcium to actually absorb within the body. And you can get D3 through the sun. There's also other foods that you can get vitamin D3 from as well. And you can take a supplement, a good quality supplement to go along with that. But a lot of times people think calcium only comes from dairy. It doesn't just come from dairy. You can get it from dairy, specifically, or hopefully your low-fat dairy products. You can even get it in calcium fortified items like your juices, but you can also get it in other items too, such as what I have here. Your broccoli, your almonds have it, your leeks, your celery has a ton of it as well. You've got a lot in your onions, your kale, and spinach is really well known to have it with it as well. Your Brussels sprouts, your cabbage, they're all loaded in it. It's important, though, you definitely get your calcium. Women are at higher risk to develop osteoporosis earlier in life than men. Now, that does not leave men out. They do have a high risk of it, but it's important. Women take care of your bodies just as well because you are at a higher risk. And the biggest bone breakage that I've seen in working in a clinical setting is your hips. That does tend to break rather quickly. So get plenty of your calcium in along with your vitamin D3 so that your bones definitely stay strong and you won't have any risk of that taking place later on in life. Next, we're going to talk about iron. Iron's very important because it actually delivers oxygen to our cells. This is what gives us our energy when we're running. And it also helps with all your red blood cells actually carry your iron around. So you want to have a high amount of iron in your diet when you're exercising. Men need to go for at least 8 milligrams of iron a day and women at least 18, which is quite a bit more. There is more women that actually tend to be more iron deficient than men. So I'm just going to show you this graph here. This is according to age on iron deficiency versus anemic. It's important you definitely get enough iron. Taking a good B complex vitamin or iron supplement, folate or B12, they all work hand in hand in getting your iron stores up. Of course, there's also great sources of food as well. Here are some iron amounts in milligrams on some of our foods we consume, from raisins, which is really high in it, down to our beans and our cornmeal. And we have oats and hummus, to black beans, to our rice, down to our Brussels sprouts and broccoli. So quite a bit we can get in our natural foods. Of course, your meats are your main source of iron. It's your liver, beef, turkey, chicken. This is a list that lists from the most in milligrams per serving down to the least. Of course, another way you can get a good amount of iron is by cooking in an iron skillet as well. Now I want to kind of address a little bit about salt or sodium. The American Heart Association recommends no more than 2,500 milligrams or 2.5 grams of salt per day. Now, when you're exercising and you're sweating, you're actually burning up extra salt. Salt is one of our electrolytes. It's found naturally in the ground, so all your foods are going to have a little bit of salt in it naturally. So the problem is that getting too much salt or not getting enough. And you want to, there's a fine line right there. If you're not sweating, more than likely you're not using up too much salt. If you don't use any salt in your food and you're not sweating, you're probably getting enough salt anyway from the food grown from the ground if you're eating clean. When you are sweating, though, you're losing a large amount of salt in your pores. So it's important that you replace that. Again, that's an electrolyte. It's for your heart. It's one of the sparks that your heart needs to keep everything pumping. And it's just one of them. There's several. So if you are sweating, if you're doing a long distance, you definitely want to increase a little bit of salt in your daily intake. The problem is there's a lot of sports drinks out there on the market. And I know they're really pumped and pushed by a lot of companies, usually the ones that actually own them, or if they're a race that's sponsoring it. But sports drinks are made for people who actually exercise for 90 minutes or longer. Sports drinks are loaded not just with salt, they're loaded with a lot of sugar. There's many times I have seen people walk into a gym drinking Gatorade on their way up the stairs to go work out, and they haven't even started their workout. They haven't even started sweating. Those extra calories are actually in that, the sugar in those calories, are actually going to be stored on as fat. And they haven't sweated anything out yet. So it's important that you wait a while before you start to consume any type of a sports drink. If you ever notice in most of races, that the ones that I've been in, the half marathons and the full marathon, that the first water stations, they only provide water, and then later on they start providing water or some type of a sports drink, Gatorade or Powerade, whatever have you, but they never provide the Gatorade initially at first. So it's important you fuel up with water before you fuel up with the Gatorade and the extra salts that's in it. The big thing about some of these sports drinks too, it's loaded in artificial type of either sugars or really cheap quality sugars, such as aspartame or high fructose corn syrup. Those are actually metabolic hormone disruptors, so you really want to watch that. Powerade tends to have more of a sucralose in it, which is a Splenda, and you still want to limit how much Splenda you do consume. Stevia is the best choice, naturally, between sugar sweeteners, but you won't find that hardly in any type of sports drink. So it's better to go with the sucralose instead of the aspartame or the high fructose corn syrup. One of the things I would also like to address too is water. Water plays a huge role in metabolism, weight control, disease prevention, and all over body health and functions. Just to cover some main points on water. Water flushes out the toxins that like to collect in our fatty areas, the cellulite areas. This is what I'll call our hail damage area. The toxins are actually released into the bloodstream and are filtered out through the kidneys if we drink plenty of water, and our skin becomes a lot smoother. The toxins that stay in there in the body tends to promote more free radicals and cause diseases such as cancer. Another thing too, sometimes we think we're hungry, but in reality, our body's really thirsty. The thirst mechanism gets a little distorted. So drink your water before diving into some calorie-dense food. Wait at least 15 minutes and see if that hunger goes away before actually diving into food. And a general rule of thumb too, you want to consume at least half of your body weight in ounces of water. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you want to get at least 100 ounces. And really, a general rule of thumb, you want to try to shoot for right at 80 to 100 ounces every day anyway. Another thing to look at as well is your urine. If it's dark yellow, then that is a sign of dehydration. If it's slightly yellow, then or almost clear, then you're great. Water is also great for helping out with recovery after your workout. It is a necessary part. And if you're tired by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, more than likely you are dehydrated. Start drinking, as a general rule of thumb, start drinking 8 to 10 ounces every hour once you get up in the morning, and drink the same amount every hour on the hour until about 3 hours before you go to bed. And this will prevent you from being up all night going to the bathroom. And you'll get plenty of water in throughout the day. Water also promotes a fullness, satiation. That means it fills you up quickly and promotes weight loss. It's a huge, huge key part of weight loss. Our body is really 60 to 70% water. It should be anyway. If we consume less than that, then our organs actually suffer. Our metabolic hormones producing organs, they all tend to kind of shrivel up. Kind of like if you can imagine a grape shriveling up into a raisin. They just don't function at their best. So you want to have those metabolic hormones really working well. And again, a big key is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. If you're fatigued, you're dehydrated. Caffeine will dehydrate you as well, so limit to no more than 2 cups of brewed coffee a day to limit your caffeine, because that, caffeine will definitely send you into a spell of dehydration. As you can see here on the little chart here, has different areas of your body that water is very important for transporting nutrients and oxygen into cells. It moisturizes the air into our lungs, helps with metabolism, protects our organs, helps with the organs and absorb nutrients better. And the muscles consist of 75% water. It detoxifies, prevents against those diseases. Bones consist of 22% water. It helps protect and moisturizes our joints. It also regulates our body temperature, and our brain is 90% water as well. Our blood is basically water and red blood cells. So we've got to have enough water, and most people are chronically dehydrated. So it's important. Start drinking up with your water. You cannot count Coke as water nor coffee as water. You can count tea as water, and flavored packets of water you can put into it as long as it does not have aspartame nor sucralose, which is Splenda. Try to go with stevia flavored drinks or packets to go into your water instead. Usually you can find those at your local health food store or a Whole Foods market or Trader Joe's, whichever one is most available to you. But definitely increase your water. I cannot emphasize that enough. That's one of the key points for weight loss. So kind of a quick summary, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on some of these that I haven't touched base on because I want to do that for week 7. It's important for any type of weight loss or just basic good health. You want to make sure you get plenty of water, plenty of good protein, a good amount of complex carbohydrates, a good source of plant fats. And some things I haven't really addressed is good sleep. A good balance of your hormones is also very important too. You want to have that support with everybody, your friends, which is great. You guys are doing this as a group. Of course, your physical activity plays that huge role in weight loss. We talked a little bit about supplements with that. And you want to truly listen to your real hunger pangs. That's important. Don't just eat off of emotions, but eat off of true physical hunger. Many people wonder, what should I eat before and after a race? For a 5K, it's important you just eat what you would normally eat before, but with more emphasis on carbohydrates, because the goal is to try to consume about 50% of your plate with carbohydrates. Don't overload yourself though. Again, eat a normal portion as you normally would, just put more emphasis on your carbohydrates, such as a spaghetti dinner would be perfect, or rice with something else. So any of that would be totally fine. After your race, go on and have your meal immediately after your race with carbohydrates as well to kind of refuel your body. Again, don't go overboard. About 50% of it should be from your carbohydrates, and then the next meal you can taper it on off. When you progress on from a 5K up to another length of a race, such as a 10K or a half marathon, then that's going to be a little bit more extensive in increasing your glycogen stores that are in your liver, and that's what you would do the day before, and afterwards, immediately after race, it'd be a little bit of a different technique. But make sure you drink plenty of your fluids, get good source of carbs and a good source of protein. The morning before the race, a good thing to eat is just peanut butter smeared on whole wheat bread. That's perfect. It doesn't have to be anything big. After the race, an apple or actually a banana would be even better because of the potassium. Banana with peanut butter would be great. So because you have your carbs because of the banana, and then you have a little bit of peanut butter with that for your protein. So, and it's got a good source of fat in it as well. So don't stress out. Just have fun. Enjoy the race. It's a journey. Just enjoy it. Well, I guess that would be enough. I've probably taken up a lot of your time and overloaded you with lots of information, and I could go into a lot of detail with all of it even more. So, but I'm going to limit that right now. But you guys are doing great. Just keep on taking it one day at a time. It really is one day at a time. It's a lifestyle change. And if you're changing your habits with eating, you've got to think of it like this too. Not only you're building up new healthy habits, you're breaking old ones as well. So take it one day at a time. Gather your strength through the Lord. Lean on Him. He's the one that's going to support you. He wants you to fuel His temple up with the best food and fuel that there is to offer. So don't deprive Him of that. Don't deprive you of that. Be the best that you can be with the best fuel that you have. And make sure you drink plenty of food, or eat plenty of food and drink your water. Get plenty of that exercise. You guys are doing great, and I guess I will see you guys next week.